Got
All
it.
right. Canada Parker, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all so very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
So, the first thing we like to ask you is the mayor is blamed for everything and rarely receives any credit when things go well. Why do you want this job?
Ooh, listen, you know what? You all actually really did ask a job. There's some people who I love, and even in the public, they say to me sometimes, Cherelle, are you okay? Are you sure you want to do this? If you would have told me when I was growing up, Larry and Denise, that my entire real live life experience would have uniquely prepared me to meet this moment, I probably wouldn't have agreed with you when I was a little girl growing up. But between my lived life experience, my professional experience and intergovernmental experience at the state and local level, my experience as a community organizer, I like to tell people I did it long before it became a popular thing to do. All of those things have uniquely prepared me to meet this moment in our city's history. And quite frankly, the way I've always viewed what I do, you know, when people go to church or if you're a part of an organization, you usually like become a part of a working committee. Like I would always be on the government relations or uh, you know, community relations committee or something like that, or ministry. This is my ministry. It's what it is that I do. It's what I and quite frankly, it's my life's work and my passion.
Okay. What causes poverty here in Philadelphia?
Systemic failures that impact the overall economic vitality of neighborhoods and people. um, I will argue to you, and I'm talking about from a generational perspective, right? That putting people on a path to self-sufficiency, that to me is generational. Does racism, sexism, classism, all of those things, come into play? Absolutely, right. But I would argue that right now, everything that we do has to be about putting people on a path to self-sufficiency, and you can't do that without access to a quality education, access to quality workforce development, without amassing the amount of student loan debt. Every time I think about it, particularly now, y'all may not know, I still have student loans. But you have to start. The payments have resumed, and without assuming a whole bunch of debt, giving people access to economic opportunities. That's extremely important.
So, how do we do that? What are some of the steps we take in order that people can get these jobs, that we can create jobs and grow the economy and all that? How do we do it?
First things first, we have to create an environment where firms want to locate here, develop here, and grow here. And it's got to be organic. We've got to support our small business owners, new startups. Philadelphia has to nurture potential business growth. And right now, we don't do that. In addition to that, I think we need to be more aggressive to go in after other firms and saying, no, the place you need to be in is Philadelphia. You need to be in Philadelphia. And this is what our great city has to offer. Why is that important? You've heard me say this 1,001 times. 40% of the city of Philadelphia's general fund revenue comes from wage and net profits, right? Wage and net profits and business income and receipts tax. That's about 41% of that. That's six, a little over plus $1 billion in general fund revenue. That means we rely more on business taxes than we do any other form of taxes here in our city in order to survive. So we've got to create an environment in which we can create jobs. You can't create jobs without supporting business growth. So that's extremely important. The second thing is every industry that is growing here in the city of Philadelphia, we have to have an educational workforce development pipeline into those industries for our students who are in the school district of Philadelphia, but we also have to have access and pipelines for non-traditional folks. I'm talking about adults who are working in a job currently, but they're not earning a living wage. They're not earning health care. They don't have a 401k or a pension. Everything that we do has to be about putting people on a path to self-sufficiency so that they're less reliant on needing to depend on government like my grandparents did in order to raise me. You heard me talk about my grandparents being on welfare to take care of me. What does welfare mean? That means they had food stamps. That means they collected $98 in cash assistance. And I had what was called during that time a blue medical card. Right. That meant that I received Medicaid assistance. I don't know what they called it during that time, the blue medical card, but people who grew up in poverty the way I did, they know what that blue medical card meant. How do we find a way to ensure that more people have access to employer-sponsored health care and or they're earning such a wage from their day jobs that they can afford health care, another way, putting people on a path to self-sufficiency that will reduce violence, that will make communities a whole, that will produce more homeowners, that will put people on a path to self-sufficiency. And quite frankly, people may not like this, but there is dignity in ownership, and there is also dignity, and it brings hope and pride back into a household when people can take care of themselves and not need anybody else to take care of their families. In my mind, I want you always thinking that every program that the city offers, I want you in your mind to say, Cherelle is asking whoever leads this program, how is it putting people on a path to self-sufficiency? How is this, making housing, giving somebody an affordable, an affordable place to live that's humane and offers dignity, and some pride and some hope for the future.
And you mentioned education. What are some of your priorities for education over the next 4 years?
So, I got really frustrated, Larry and Denise, during the primary. But listen, it's all par for the course in politics, right? But when people heard me talk about increasing the school district portion of our property taxes from 55 to 58%, yes, it was only a minor 3% projected to generate about $50 million a year. But if we ever had to go to the marketing and use that revenue for any borrowing, right, we could. But so that was the revenue portion that I talked about, because some people only know how to introduce or recommend programs, but don't talk about revenue generating mechanisms. It's easy to talk about how you spend. In government, the goal is, as it relates to fiscal stability, is how you're going to pay for it, right? So that's one I offered. Okay, a tool, a revenue generating tool. The second thing is this: when I talked about year-round education, people knew that I wasn't referencing children sitting in a traditional classroom at a traditional desk, all day long from morning, first thing in the morning when they get to school to 7 o'clock at night. They knew that's what I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about me being more creative and innovative as it relates to how we deliver and schedule public education here in the city. So I want you to imagine a traditional school day. And once that traditional school day is over, after school and in the evenings, you get tutoring and homework help. You get access to enrichment courses like that may not be offered during the traditional day, although I would love it if they were. But in coding, what if it were chess? What if it were a special life sciences and biotech course? What if it was financial literacy, and learning how to manage investments or take care of a household? What if there were courses like that were available year long, that were options for our children, especially those who whose parents and or caregivers, like my grandparents, would not have had the ability to afford access to that kind of those kind of enrichment courses. That is what I was proffering. So that is what I would be looking to do as mayor of this city. I want to build, like I do want to be really clear about that. We have an aging infrastructure in the city of Philadelphia, and we've got to make sure the rebuilding of our schools is essential in what we do, and that's capital. Right. So we've got to rebuild schools, but our children also have to be trained to do the rebuilding. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad problem. Because I'm an eternal optimist. No matter how foolish people think that is, I'm always going to see the glass half full. But now, what an opportunity for a great partnership with the Philadelphia building trades that I'm super happy about having their support, but so that our children and adults are being trained to be the next generation of the workforce in the building trade. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about. And some of our schools, they need a total rebuild. Remember the price tag when we went through the facilities in improvement overview? It was $5 billion plus that we would need to address the aging infrastructure. And while the court case gives Philadelphia a wonderful opportunity to advocate like others in the Commonwealth and our Pennsylvania General Assembly to get adequate funding for public education as a result of the Commonwealth Court's ruling. And I have great faith in our governor and our legislature in both the House, and the Senate, that we will be funding public education in the Commonwealth in a more equitable way that ensure that dollars are driven from a needs-based perspective and not based on the strength of your tax base, especially for us, because we're not a majority wealthy tax base here. I'm talking about now independent wealth, and not the business taxes, so that's my perspective. And listen, I was also very clear. I'm not going to allow people in the city of Philadelphia to try to pit traditional publics against charter schools. Not happening under a Parker administration, if it's God's will and I win, because they are all our children. Even our children who attend parochial schools. Parochial schools are in neighborhoods, right? What is happening with the parochial school system now? And how can parochial charter schools and traditional publics, how can they all work together? And what can they do to leverage any supports, right? You don't know until you bring people together and you have people sit down and talk about shared values. And is there anything that we can do that we can help each other? Well, you don't know until you bring them together. And because I'm not going to allow anyone to use a divide and conquer strategy to bully me into any decision making, I much rather bring people together to the table. That's what I'm going to focus on.
So should you be elected after those first 4 years, what does a successful attempt to address poverty look like, and how do you measure that?
So you remember the platform: safer, cleaner, greener, with access to economic opportunity for all. People in Philadelphia feel safer and the neighborhoods are cleaner. We know because we've had an independent third party measuring what Philadelphians feel. We know because civic engagement has increased. There are more people actively engaged and keeping their communities cleaner, and safer. There, we have strengthened relationships between law enforcement and people in our community. We have proactive community policing. So the only time people look in their neighborhoods, they don't say, well, I only see a police officer when something bad has happened in crisis mode. No, police are a part of that, and it's the norm. It's standard operating procedure. In addition to that, every industry that's thriving in the city of Philadelphia we have a formal pipeline to it. If you're attending our schools, or if you're an adult and you want to go into life sciences and biotech or IT or whatever industry that's thriving here that we're making an investment in. I'm thinking about the port. Wow, what potential opportunities. We have pipelines to prepare people for those opportunities in our schools and, quite frankly, working adults. And people, we know it because you can measure the number of Philadelphians who are now employed. We've strengthened and bolstered home repair, right? And we haven't pit the have-nots against those who have just a little bit. We've made those supports and services available for the majority of Philadelphians who can't afford to, who don't have the credit to be able to go to a traditional bank and get a loan. We've made, repairing your house and restoring it. We've made that available, that opportunity, while making sure we've dealt with Kensington. The open air drug market, as we know it, is shut down. Open air drug use is not tolerated in our city. There are consequences for it. While there's a reduction and we would love to say, it's no longer in existence, right? An elimination of quality of life crimes like what we're seeing today. And I want people to be able to say, well, listen, you can see it, you can feel it, but we will have a third party, independent, verified, collect. Across the board, they're giving us recommendations on how to make systems better, management and employees. And so from a commissioner on down to supervisors, on down to entry-level workers, everybody's talking. We're finding a way to constantly improve. And in every neighborhood in the city, this administration has a vehicle to connect people to government services. You don't need a hookup. You don't have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody to find out what services or supports are available. We work with the council. The council and the administration are working arm in arm to promote every program and support that the city of Philadelphia has available. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. Every audience I've been getting in front of, trying to get people to understand the significance of making tough decisions, but also letting them know that some people are not going to be pleased with some of the decisions. But when you ask to lead, and I ask the people of the city of Philadelphia to give me this opportunity to be their leader, to make the tough decisions that we need to put Philadelphia on a track where there's access to economic opportunity for all, and public health and safety is our number one priority. And we're investing in education and workforce development. So I can't get upset if we're making a tough decision and somebody's mad about it.
Okay. Well, what are you looking for in a new police commissioner? Oh
gosh, this one is extra. Larry, some people didn't get this, and I'm really feeling vindicated right there. And I'm going to tell you why. Somebody saw an article the other day about the Adams administration, and they said, Cherelle, you're going to smile. I said, why? They said, read the first paragraph of the article. I read it. Guess what it affirms? That emotional intelligence was a major factor and sort of determining who was suitable and best prepared and most qualified to work in that administration, that element of emotional intelligence, it wasn't an afterthought, right? So for me, you've heard me talk about cultural competency and emotional intelligence. Those two are essential. Second, it's got to be someone who knows our city and the culture here in our city. And quite frankly, someone who can put together a comprehensive policing strategy for our city that includes more than just policing, because we won't police our way alone. That can't be the sole indicator and or strategy for how we make Philadelphia a safer city, a healthier a city, but one who is not afraid to make tough decisions that are needed. And now I'm talking about our police commissioner would have to be the individual who is leading our strategy to shut down the open air drug market in the Kensington area, to ensuring that open air drug use is not tolerated, that we address the quality of life issues that are happening in our city and people just thinking that they can do whatever they want. And there is no fear of consequences. That will not happen in a Parker administration. And again, some people are not going to like it, and I do understand it, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. But if it's God's will and I win this election, I am going to do everything that I possibly can to the best of my ability to make public health, safety, our number one priority while putting people on the path to self-sufficiency. And so those are the things that are important for bringing on a police commissioner. And they have to understand that we look at our law enforcement officers as guardians and not warriors. And I'm going to also do everything that I can to remove barriers, right? For onboarding people, to getting people in our police academy. Now we have some very onerous, criteria, right? And when we figure out, well, what are the barriers to entry to diversifying Philadelphia's police department, and why are we having such a hard time, getting back up to our complement? There's some very specific strategies that we can and should be trying to take advantage of. And I'm going to make sure that I pursue every barrier to entry that is available to bring more people onto our force.
All right, and before I hand it off to Denise Clay Murray, last thing, where are you on the 76ers arena in Center City?
So you've heard me, and somebody just reminded me of this, and I feel so good about this. I said to my this was during my tenure in council, so there's a record of this. Larry, you and Denise, do you remember when Delaware Avenue, the waterfront, they said a stadium was being proposed, some kind of development that included the stadium? Well, I can remember when I was in council and that discussion had started, it was only an article in the paper. And immediately I heard some people just say, no, definitely not happening there. I felt good to say the same thing then that I said when the arena was being proposed for Market Street, that Philadelphia doesn't have the luxury of giving a knee-jerk no reaction to any economic development proposal that could have an impact on not just economic development, but job creation, building wealth, and making the city safer and cleaner and healthier, and putting people on a path to self-sufficiency, a short, medium, and long term. You have to do a cost-benefit analysis. You have to engage with residents. Every stakeholder who has a nickel in the quarter, they have to have a seat at the table. And you got to say, now, what are you offering? What is it that you want to do? How will this impact this? How will this impact that? And a mayor should gather as much information as he or she possibly can to make an informed decision. And I have not made a decision that I am for or against. It is very, very interesting to hear people tell me what I'm doing. I said, well, wow, that, great. Thanks that they have an opinion, but it's been so interesting watching people say what I've already committed to. I haven't already committed to anything. What I have said, and I'm real clear about, is that I'm going to go on a fact-finding, information gathering. I'm gonna take that sort of avenue, get as much information, and I'm gonna communicate with people across this city who should be concerned about a project of this magnitude being proposed, and we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis, and then we will see where we end up. But I have not made a decision, Larry and Denise, one way or another.
All right, I'd like to bring you Denise Clay Murray here on Philadelphia Hall Monitor.
Hello, yes. Denise, how are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Second time us talking, I think, within the last month and a half, so it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. One of the things that you mentioned, and I'm going to piggyback on the issue of the police department and some of the things that are that you described as onerous things that are keeping people from joining the department. What are some of those things, and how would you remove them as barriers?
So let me just use one, and you've heard me say this. Council President Darrell Clark has definitely talked about this. We have two requirements, and when you talk to people who've worked within and or around recruitment and or the police academy, they talk about standardized testing that is required in accordance with rules that are promulgated from the state. And with that being said, I want you to think about this. Do both you and Larry remember when we saw institutions of higher learning across the nation? I saw it right before COVID, but it really expanded during COVID, and we're still seeing them now. Make the SAT optional. You all know the SAT is this standardized test. It has become optional now. Now, as a certified secondary English teacher by profession, I can tell you that I think standardized testing like that I think it's intrinsically biased. And I don't think it alone should be the sole indicator in determining how anyone will perform in any particular area. So we would need to figure out, is there a way for Philadelphia to have some flexibility, to figure out how it can work with institutions of higher learning here, like CCP, like Temple, like Penn, like Drexel, to develop a mechanism that would demonstrate, let's, for example, say reading proficiency and or physical fitness. Denise, right now, if you had me to try to take the physical fitness exam for the police department, the sheriff's office, or any other department, I want you to know I consider myself to be pretty fairly in shape, but I probably wouldn't pass. But let me tell you one thing about me. If you gave me a certain amount of time, Denise, and you developed benchmarks that I had to meet along the process in order to eventually pass whatever the final exam or something is, I guarantee you I will have the ability to pass that test. That's what Philadelphia needs the flexibility to do now, to make sure we have the best, well-trained and prepared police force in this nation, and we can do it working in partnership with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and any of our other stakeholders.
Okay, another thing that to piggyback on something else that Larry asked about in terms of housing. What a lot of people don't know is that while developers have been able to use the 10-year tax abatement to build various things here in the city, it is also available to residents. And residents can use the 10-year tax abatement to redo things in their homes and get 10 years off in taxes on that. Is there any plan that you have, should you get elected, to kind of let residents know that, yes, you too can use the 10-year tax abatement, and here's how?
First of all, well, I'm being interviewed, so I don't want to turn around and ask you, how did you know that you could actually use the 10-year tax abatement that way? But that is absolutely true. But guess what? A very small segment, Denise, of Philadelphians took advantage of the tool. Now, part of the reason, and this is my humble opinion, Philadelphia does a poor job in marketing what our existing programs are. And we don't make it easy for people to gain access to them. That is why it is so important to have formal structural organization and or system for Philadelphians to feed into in their respective communities, faith-based organizations, for example, community-based organizations and nonprofits, so that people know that this information is available. Part of the way when you think of some of our biggest brands, Denise, who are that are so popular, we forget how much money they spend on marketing. Right. So people don't forget who they are and how to access them. We did not do that here in the city of Philadelphia when it came to using the abatement for that purpose. With that being in mind, I want us to be much more proactive, not just with when we have that tool. I will argue for restore, repair, renew. You know, that's my baby. Borrow $50,000, up to $50,000, 10 years to pay it back, 3% fixed interest rate, credit score as low as 580. Denise, if you and Larry went and did a poll of just 100 random people, I guarantee you that maybe one person would know about it. Want me to tell you why? We've done a poor job of marketing it and with all programs. So I would like to see BSRP, Restore, Repair, Renew, all of our our property tax assistance programs, like our rent rebate for this with the state, right? You don't know how many seniors are not even applying for rent rebates, right? So they can maintain their stable housing, and or the homestead exemption. You would just be surprised how many people who don't take advantage of what services and supports we have available right now under Parker administration. Lord knows, Denise and Larry, I'm going to do my best to make sure we have as many avenues available as possible to get people access to information. Education is a significant part of why some of our challenges occur. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But Denise, what you just said, you would think that when I heard you say it, if you saw me smile, I was first thinking to myself is, one, how does she know? And two, somebody one day could read what you write or see this and they'll say, wow, I never even knew that was a tool, because you never heard that discussed in the public. Or when you did hear it discussed, the first thing people would say is, so few Philadelphians have used it. And you say to yourself, but wait a minute, I see how many people, especially during COVID, right, who were making improvements to their houses. The most affordable house is the house you currently live in. So if you had access to revenue to help you fix up your current house, listen, that wasn't a bureaucratic nightmare. Right, that it could assess. You have to have accountability, but we also need to make sure that our seniors and other people who aren't as technically savvy as we would like them to be, that would include somebody like my grandparents, if they were here right now, that they have access to those programs.
Okay, recently I was the moderator for a panel that they had on PhillyCam, where we talked about some of the issues that were connected to the mayor's race. One of the people that was on the panel was a gentleman that works in harm reduction for people who are on drugs. And he was speaking in support of there being, and this depends on how you stand in the process. If you're against it, I find that you call it a safe ejection site. If you're for it, you consider it a harm reduction place. Since people can't seem to agree on how to solve the problem of getting people off of drugs and finding, people to help they need to no longer have places like in Kensington where people are, actively taking drugs. And have you thought about this problem? And if so, what would harm reduction look like in a Parker administration?
I don't care what euphemism it is that you use to describe it. It is a safe injection site. And that is the way it was described by the industry when it was first, offered as a potential solution to help address overdoses within this opioid crisis. I don't support them. I don't apologize about my not supporting them. I believe in access to long-term care, treatment, and housing. And I think we need to be innovative and start thinking about partnerships and collaborations that we've never explored in the philanthropic community, the medical community, along with an intergovernmental approach. And that is the strategy that I will employ in a Parker administration if the people were to elect me to be their 100th mayor. What would harm reduction look like? We'll have to see if we get there. I know it won't take the form of a safe injection site in a Parker administration. And we will have a conversation about what role harm reduction will have in the city's response to addressing the opioid crisis. And I also want to state this for the record. You know, I know heroin, and I knew heroin before people referred to it as heroin. I knew it when I heard people, particularly in Black and brown communities, refer to it as something called Monster. Before there was Narcan, that I remember Black and brown people being brought back from overdoses because they were put in bathtubs filled with ice. And that was how families were trying to save family members. I've seen children, we talk about this open air drug use. It's inhumane that we would try to act as if Philadelphia allowing that culture to just flourish was compassion. It's, for me, it's a lack of compassion, right? And allowing open air drug use there. And I think about kids that not only have to walk through needles to go to the park or the playground, we have to think about children who see those needles in their homes and they're living with it on a daily basis. They deserve our support and concern as well. So I have a holistic approach, and it is seeped in real life lived experience. And there will be some people who will say, you know, well, we don't think that she's as receptive to harm reduction strategies as we would like for her to be. They have a right to their opinions, but I have a right to put together a team of the best and brightest medical professionals around and institutions we have in our region, and quite frankly, anywhere, who can add value to our overall prescription to addressing that crisis here in our great city. And I know we can do it. I'm optimistic about it. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But if we get all hands on deck, I know we can find a way to end this open air drug market and use that we see in the Kensington area. And the people of Kensington, I want to be also clear about that. They are first in my mind. The people who own houses here, who go to school there, who work there, who don't have an option of being able to pick up and go because they don't like what they see in their environment. Those are the people also weighing heavy on my spirit. And we're going to find a way to address those challenges.
Now, does that include having more of a police presence? Because when you talk to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, absolutely, no doubt about it. If anyone is talking about a holistic approach to addressing the opioid crisis, and policing and mental behavioral health supports is not a part of it, then I don't know who they are. But policing will definitely be a part of that strategy. It has to be if it's a holistic approach. It's not just community policing, though, and policing. It is access to support, social services and human service supports, mental and behavioral health supports. It's a comprehensive approach, Denise. And usually when I get people to ask me questions like that, they want me to sort of be put in this policing box where policing is the strategy. That's who Cherelle Parker is. She thinks policing is the sole strategy for making Philadelphia safer and healthier. And that's wrong. If somebody needs to do that to sell a newspaper or to get some promotion, they have a right to do that. But that's not what I've been promoting. And I haven't been since I've started running for mayor of this city, nor have I during my career. It may for good, exciting conversation, but it's not accurate. My plan, if anyone is interested, can be reached at www.cherelleparker.com, and/or you can just Google my comprehensive neighborhood safety and community policing plan that was introduced long before I decided to resign from council and to run for mayor. When others were shouting for us to defund the police, I put in writing and spent the capital to introduce a plan that I knew out there would be a lot of critics of, but I listened to the people and I developed that program, that plan from the ground up, and I'm super proud of it and look forward to, if it's God's will and I win, to hiring a police commissioner who can develop a plan and shares my vision for public health and safety being our number one priority here in the city.
Now, will that also be a criterion for whoever you pick as the health commissioner in terms of seeing your vision, not only for this problem, but some of the other healthcare problems that we have here in the city?
Denise, I love that question. I love that question because this is not only for the health commissioner, but it is anyone who would be hired in a Parker administration to implement in a way that Philadelphians can tangibly touch, see, and feel, making our city safer, cleaner, greener, with economic opportunity for all. You're going to have to be able to, one, embrace that vision and share that vision. I will argue with you, Denise, that sometimes I talk to a lot of people who have become what I call expert AOPs. They are expert articulators of problems. They can tell you about the problems over and over again. That drains energy from a person like me who's very results and solutions oriented. And I have to be able to attract the best and the brightest who share and that optimistic sort of perspective and optimistic form and way of thinking. It's a can-do spirit. It's gritty. You've got to demonstrate resilience and outcomes that people can see, touch, and feel. And we're going to do that not just with the police department and in health, but in every department here in the city of Philadelphia, if it's God's will and I become our 100th mayor.
Okay. My last question is about the office itself. Now, you were in council for what, 2 terms? And now you're going to go from the council side to the mayor's office. And those are 2 different things. What do you see as your biggest challenge going from council to the mayor's office if you win? And how do you propose you're going to handle it?
So, Denise, rather than viewing it as my biggest challenge, I'll tell you what I think is my greatest asset. One of my greatest assets, and I felt this way going into the race, is that I started as a council intern and a council staffer working with a lady by the name of Councilwoman Marion Tasco. And another lady I worked with was Councilwoman Augusta Clark. So I came into local government learning how to serve people, how to address constituent services. And I know how important it is for our council members and our district council members in particular, but all of them, to make sure Philadelphians are getting connected to the services that we offer. So for me, I view the relationship between a potential Parker administration and the City Council of Philadelphia as a mutually beneficial relationship, because we can't be successful if we don't work together. Like, it's sort of not an I, and I've never been an I person. I spent not that long, only a couple of years, long enough to find my way to the bathroom in Harrisburg. But if you were to go and visit there and talk to people, and I spirit is not who I am. In order to get done anything that I've ever been successful with in my lifetime, I will tell you, I did it by forming coalitions with other like-minded people and trying to figure out how we could get to yes, particularly on complex issues. And even when we were what people would call, I can remember the term, it was used often, unlikely allies, when they would never expect 2 people to get together, with some shared value. So I think that is my greatest strength. And I'm looking forward to working with all members of the city council and getting that done. Whomever it is that the people select, that is who I'm looking forward to working with. And guess what I believe ultimately, Denise? We all have shared values. Everybody wants the same thing. And we've just got to figure out a way to get there together. And that's who I am, right? I want people to see, touch, and feel. When Philadelphia is doing better and we're moving forward, that's great for the council. That's great for the mayor. That's great for our state legislative delegations in both the House and the Senate. It's great for our region. So it doesn't, some people want to try to pit the 2 against each other. And for those people who have that frame of thinking and they think that way, that's fine. I'm not ever going to try to fight anybody and how they think. But my mind, the way it functions, I bring people together in the spirit of getting to yes, figuring out a way to hammer out compromise to address very complex solutions. And that's what I would do as mayor of this city. And we need everybody to do it. I'm glad I don't suffer from what I don't have illusions of self-grandeur. And because of that, I don't have a problem going to anybody and saying to them, I was just talking to a group of people, look, Philadelphia needs you. We need you. Can you help us? It was, Cherelle, you say that, do you think that's because you're a woman that you're able to tell people you need them and you need the help? I said, I don't know what it is, but I know we can't do this alone. We know we need everybody helping us.
Okay. Well, thank you. Now, just one more quick question. I understand that at least 2 debates between you and former council member David O have been set. Have there been any other debates? And if so, I mean, can you tell our audience when those debates will be?
So one, Denise, now I'm the last person in the world you have to ask about formal scheduling, because if you want to see me screw something up, I'll screw up a schedule in a second. So I can't do that. The only thing I can tell you, and I want the people of our great city to know this, and I know that you all paid attention, but we just completed what many have described as the most competitive, the most expensive and intense mayoral primary election in my lifetime. We had a record number of debates and forums, and Lord knows I participated in all of them, almost all of them. I know everyone that was televised, everyone that was on the radio, and that doesn't include the individual forums that have been funded, different community-based organizations across this city, because I was anxious about being able to deliver my message about that vision I had for the city to the people, and nothing about that has changed. Yes, we do have, I think, debates and forums scheduled now, the formats and the wins, and I don't have all of that on hand. I wasn't prepared to give you those specifics during this interview, but I will have members of my team to send it to you, both Larry and Denise, if you like. But Philadelphia, I'm looking forward to doing what I will continue doing, and that's being in every neighborhood, in every zip code, and that's Cherelle Parker, that's members of my team. Those are allies and members who are a part of the coalition, trying to reach as many people as we possibly can to get our vision regarding how we will, in fact, together make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, greenest big city in the nation, with access to economic opportunity for all. We don't care about where people were during the May primary election. We had a competition. It's over. The people chose. There are two candidates that people have for consideration. And I'm going to continue doing what somebody like me has had to do my entire life. When nothing's given to you, the only thing you know how to do is earn. That's why I'm going to continue working hard, doing everything that I can to earn the support of every Philadelphian, no matter their race, class, socioeconomic status, zip code, sexual orientation, identity, religion. I'm going to earn the support of Philadelphians, and we're going to move this city forward together.
Okay, thank you. And I'll give you back to Larry McGlynn, and you're still listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
Thank you, Denise. Larry, you're on mute.
You're on. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Larry?
To err is human. To really mess things up, you need a computer.
For 1 second, it seems like I heard something, but then it went back out again. You want to go out and try to come back in, Larry? Go. You sure? Wait, sure. I heard you. I just heard you.
Well, yeah, because Larry and I are in the same place.
But, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the final election for Mayor of Philadelphia is on November 7th, and you have until October 23rd to get registered to vote.
Thank you, Larry and Denise, so very much for having me today. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
No, okay, what do I do? Now, Denise and Larry, do I cut off now?
Larry's got to hit end record.
Okay. Okay. I hit the red. Okay. I see a dot. I see a red, yellow, and green dot. I hit the red dot. Okay. Thank you.